The Kansas City Chiefs knew exactly what they were doing, so we're going to be going through that and other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Kansas City Chiefs news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is Chiefs wide receiver could be on thin ice after Mecole Hardman trade. Going into the 2023 campaign, Kadarius Toney was being spoken about as a candidate for the WR1 role with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, entering Week 8, it's more likely that he's phased out of the offense entirely after the return of Mecole Hardman. I firmly believe that reacquiring Mecole Hardman would eat into Sky Moore's snaps and not Toney's, but that theory looks foolish through one game, voiced Chiefs writer Joe Summers of Fansided on October 23rd. Summers named Toney as his #1 KC player that is on thin ice heading into Week 8, and it's hard to argue with this realization. Toney played just 19% of snaps, his second lowest total of the season, while Moore played 60%, he detailed. The former first-round pick managed just one catch on one target for 13 yards, playing only 2 more offensive snaps than Hardman, despite the latter just getting to town a few days ago. Both Hardman and Toney have been utilized similarly during their stints in KC, so it's very possible that the WR trade reunion could lead to a minimized role for the latter. Whether it's the dropped passes or too much hesitation on designed runs, Toney has been dreadful in 2023. He only has 103 scrimmage yards and 1 total touchdown on the year. And that includes 3 credited drops, 1 fumble, and -2 yards rushing on 5 attempts. If you incorporate in returns, Hardman already has 56 total yards in just 1 game as a Chief this year. The crowded WR room doesn't help Toney's case to play more. Rashee Rice continues to look like Kansas City's best receiver, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling had his best game of the season, Summers wrote in the article. He added that, if Toney is behind those two and falls behind Moore with Hardman eating into his gadget plays, the draft capital the Chiefs surrendered to bring Toney in will quickly look like an overpay. Summers finally pointed out that even Justin Ross managed 25% of the snaps, with Toney only at 19%. Toney was 5th on the pecking order and needs to find ways to get involved against the Denver Broncos in Week 8, the KC columnist concluded. Even if Toney doesn't end up making it in Kansas City, the Chiefs will always have the 2023 Super Bowl win as proof that the trade was indeed worth the return. Toney caught a key touchdown against the Philadelphia Eagles that night, but his best moment was the record-long punt return that set up yet another touchdown for the Chiefs. As for the Giants, they made out pretty well considering Toney wore out his welcome ahead of his departure. Big Blue used KC's picks to trade for tight end Darren Waller and draft cornerback Trey Hawkins III. Waller has certainly been the best of the three, but one could argue that both NYG players have been more impactful than Toney in 2023. The 6th rounder, Hawkins, has started 2 games out of 7 and registered over 250 total snaps so far as a rookie. It's difficult to tell if the Chiefs are a winner of the trade, but given how close the Super Bowl was and the instrumental role that he played, we'll call them a winner even if a 3rd-round pick is a bit steep, Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan outlined earlier this year. The NFL writer was also willing to conclude that both Toney himself and the Giants were definitive winners in this deal. So this one could go down as a win-win at the end of the day, even if the Super Bowl is the sole positive for KC. The Kansas City Chiefs are set to be without a key member of their front 7 for roughly the next 2 months. Nick Bolton, a Chiefs starting linebacker and 2nd-round pick in 2021, will need surgery to repair his dislocated wrist. He sustained the injury during Kansas City's Week 7 win over the Chargers. LB Nick Bolton will need surgery on his dislocated wrist and is expected to miss roughly 2 months per source. A tough loss for the Kansas City D. NFL insider Tom Pelissero was first to report on Monday. Bolton, 23, has already missed 3 games this season due to an ankle injury. He's now expected to miss several more as he recovers from wrist surgery. A former standout linebacker at Missouri, Bolton has quickly developed into being a crucial starter for the Chiefs. He started all 17 games in 2022 and 12 during his rookie campaign in 2021. We'll keep an eye out for updates to Bolton's status as his recovery timeline becomes clearer. The Kansas City Chiefs made a somewhat surprising decision when they sent a draft pick to the New York Jets in exchange for wide receiver Mecole Hardman, and now the team is clearing space for the veteran wideout. Hardman isn't the only player having a roster pathway paved for him, however, as defensive lineman Charles Omenihu is expected to soon come off the reserve suspended list and join the 53-man roster. Per a Thursday morning report by Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest, Kansas City has decided which two players will be coming off the roster in corresponding moves. Wide receiver Montrell Washington and defensive tackle Keandre Coburn have reportedly been waived by the team. Chiefs have waived WR Montrell Washington and DT Keandre Coburn. That clears way for the return of Mecole Hardman and the eventual return of Charles Omenihu. Washington's departure shouldn't be a shock, especially given that he was more of a return specialist than a receiving option during his time on the team.